Hello and welcome to another day with the Maker Advent Calendar. Today is box number 10. Let's take a look at what's inside box number 10. So, breaking beams. Today we have another new sensor to play with, a break beam sensor. These sensors allow your project to detect something passing between them, so they're great as part of an alarm or security system, but can also be used to track the number of breaks for counting movement rotations. We're also going to make some fun games today, so let's get straight into it. In this box you will find a custom break beam sensor, emitter and receiver with male jumper wire ends and a 10K resistor and some more male to male jumper wires. So today we'll be getting our break beam sensor set up with a nice simple example, then jumping straight into a fun finger tap timer game. The break beam sensor in your box comes with two parts, the emitter, 2 wires, and the receiver, 3 wires. The emitter sends an infrared light out which is detected by the receiver, which keeps the white signal pin high. If something breaks this beam, gets in the way, the receiver does not detect a signal and then sends the pin low. We tell our code to watch for a low signal, which tells our program that something broke the beam, which we can use to trigger an alarm, counter, or any other action. It's a reverse-Percy version of what we used previously, as we've usually looked for high signals. These work well when placed up to about 20-25 centimeters apart, but they can be a little unreliable outside of that range. More advanced industrial versions are used for larger areas such as doorways. There are so many cool ways to use these. As a hand sensor for your desk to trigger your code, with a train or scaleelectric set detecting when the train car is passing to count laps, a cookie jar movement alarm detecting when someone is sneaking a cheeky bicky, with a robot using a disc with a hole cut out to detect the count wheel revolutions, and many more. So your starting circuit should look like this, same as before. Now grab your mini breadboard and fit the red and black jumper wires into the same holes as we have below. The emitter and receiver will both use the same 3.3 volt red and ground black pins, so we're fitting them to the same lanes here. The white wire is the data signal wire for the receiver only, so this sits to the side on its own. We need to add the included 10K resistor between the 3.3 volt red and signal white pins, so fit this the same way as we have below. Now we need to connect everything to our Pico breadboard. Connect the black ground line to our blue ground channel. The red 3.3 volt line to our 3.3 volt pin. And the white signal line to our GPIO 26, which is physical pin 31. Okay, so activity 1. Basic break beam program. We'll kick off today with a minimal break beam program to show you how they work. You'll need to secure the emitter and receiver on a flat surface with a little round heads. You'll need to secure the emitter and receiver on a flat surface with the little round heads facing each other. Around 15 centimeters apart should work very well. You can use blue tack, sticky tape, or simply some books or other heavy items resting on top to hold them in place. Just make sure nothing is in the way of the beams. You also need to keep an eye on the jumper wires, as they like to escape from the breadboard sometimes. So we've just connected ours up with some blue tack on the sides. It was a little bit tricky because the wires have been folded for some time, so they like to spring out. But a bit of blue tack on either side has worked really well there. So the code. We import what we need, set up the break beam pin number with pull down, Then run a while loop with an if statement, waiting for the pin to go low. Copy this over to Thonny, run the code, and then block the beam with your hand. So copy that code, paste it into Thonny, and then we will run the current script. So if I now put my finger there, it comes up and says beam broken. Okay, so we know that the receivers are working. Fantastic. Okay, so activity number 2, break beam high score game. Let's make a little game with these sensors that counts the number of times you can break the beam within 30 seconds. Prints your score at the end, then closes the program. We need to ensure players can't cheat by simply holding their finger in place. So we use the same method as yesterday's counting code, where we demand the pin status to change before the code will accept another count. We'll also add our buzzer to the code to add beeps for the game to start and finish. There are a few new elements in the example code that we need to introduce, so let's get over to them first. Time and epoch. We've been using time.sleep a lot over the last 10 days. However, we're going to use another part of the module today. In our example code, we use time.time. This returns the number of seconds since epoch. Epoch is a timestamp widely used in computing and is the number of seconds that have elapsed since the 1st of January 1970. Now, this might seem like a really odd thing for us to use here, but as epoch time keeps ticking a second at a time, it's an easy to use, reliable and readily available timer. There are other ways to run timers, but this was a good excuse to talk about epoch. We take a snapshot of epoch as our game start time, storing it in a variable, then take readings every loop, using simple maths to compare the start time in seconds to the current time in seconds, checking whether 30 seconds have passed since the start time. We can't simply count seconds since the game start with our usual time.sleep, as this doesn't account for the other delays in our program, such as the short delay we add to the while statement to avoid the program running at a ridiculous speed. If you're curious, try the very short code below to see what epoch currently looks like. Okay, so that's giving us what the time is now. Okay, so that's giving us what the time is now. We also import sys in this example. The only reason we add this is to allow us to use sys.exit to end the program after the game is finished. It's another handy command you can add to your programs to ensure it ends after a condition is met. Like all things code, Python, MicroPython, there are many ways to achieve the same result. This is just one way we wanted to introduce. Although the code example below is longer than some of the others we've shown you, there's nothing scary or new here. We're importing, setting up pins and PWM, creating some variables, then using a while loop with if statements, all things you're good at now. You'll notice that our if statement always checks the timer first, because this is the most important thing. If the time is up, we don't want our player being able to continue. If the time isn't up, the elif statements are there to check for the state and whether the beam is broken. Copy the code below over to Thonny and give it a try. Then see if you can beat some of our staff record times below. The only rule is that only a single finger can be used. It's a great little game to set up over the festive period to challenge family and friends, and you get to show off your new kit and skills too. Okay, so let's copy that code, paste it, and run it. Okay, there's the beat to start the... Okay, so let's go. We've got to get as many as we can in 30 seconds. $65, $80, $144. What score? Did I beat any of the team? No, I didn't. Okay, so I think I need some practice at that. So activity 3, break beam target score game. The last activity created a game where we tried to hit the highest score possible in 30 seconds. This time, we're creating a game with a target to hit within 30 seconds, using our LEDs to indicate how close the player is to beating the game. It uses similar code to the example above, but we make it a little busier by adding in the LEDs with a new variable to set a target. Target score. Additional if statements to light the LEDs depending on score, and some tweaks to the print lines to show the target next to their current score. So to allow us to easily set a different target score, which drives the game and prints the lines, we set the target as a variable and use that throughout the program. We even use this to drive the LEDs by turning them into percentages in our if statements. For example, one of the LED if statements looks like this. If score counter is less than target score divided by 100 multiplied by 33. This says if the player's score is less than 33% of the target score. All we're doing here is taking our target score, dividing it by 100 to give us 1%, then multiplying that by whatever percentage of score completion we want each LED to light at, and then compare that to the player's score. We use 0 to 33% for the red LED, 33 to 66% for the amber LED, and then any score over 66% lights the green LED. This gives our player a visual indication of how close they are to beating the game. Ifs in ifs. You'll notice the LED indicator if statements are sitting inside elif statement. This is fine and is known as a nested if statement. Whilst it can make your code a little trickier to read and review, it's another tool you can use if you want the triggered if statement to then check something else. In our example, we're happy that the player triggered the elif statement to increase their score, but we also want to check the score and update our LEDs as part of that. So the code, give it a spin by copying and running the code below. Then, why not try increasing the target score to make the game harder, changing the LED percentage ranges, and creating functions to turn the LEDs off or beep the buzzer to save a few lines of code. So let's copy this. Okay, and let's run it so we know what it's doing. So game starts after the beep, go! Okay, so the red LED is showing at the moment. But now I've gone over 33%, the amber LED is going. And now I'm over 66%, the green LED has come on. And I made it to 100, and I did it in 21 seconds. So now what we can do is we can now go back through our code. And it said increase target score to make the game harder. So if I change that to 130, because I still had 9 seconds left, so I reckon I can get 30 more within 9 seconds. And we can change the LED ranges. So if we scroll down here to the LED ranges, we can say change the LED range to 44%. So anything below 44% will have the red LED on. Then anything between 44% and say 90% will put the amber LED on, and then anything over 90%. It also said about changing the LEDs. So when it changes to amber, let's turn off the red LED. And when it goes above 90, let's turn off the red and let's turn off the amber. Okay, let's give that a go. So game starts after the beep. Go. One. Go on. Yes. Go. Okay, so we're coming up to the 44. Okay, so we've hit 44. Now we're in the range where the amber LED is on and the red one went off. And now I've just got to hit 90%. 9 seconds left. There we go, 90%. So the green LED has come on. So we got there with 4 seconds remaining. So everything we did there worked really, really well. So that completes day number 10. We hope you enjoyed the games in today's break beam activities. Why not get the whole family involved to show off your project and see who can score the highest for ultimate bragging rights? You now have another sensor in your ever-growing box of bits to make projects with. Perhaps you'll combine it with the PIR sensor from day 7 to make an awesome alarm with multiple sensors. This is the last time we'll be using the LEDs in the calendar, so go ahead and remove them from your circuit. It's best to keep them in the same bag as the resistors so that you don't mix them up. We also won't be using the buzzer tomorrow, so you can remove that as well. So what did we cover on day 10? Today, you have built a circuit with the break beam sensors. Learn how to code break beam sensors. Created a fun break beam game. Learn additional time module options, including epoch time. Learn how to use the sys module to end a program. Created nested if statements. Use simple maths to turn values into percentages with MicroPython. And continue to reuse all of the things that you've learned over the last 10 days. So that one was really good. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow for day number 11.